My guests today are Michael Perez-Lindsey and Rhett Lindsey about their new short film, Will I See You Again? Now, Michael Perez-Lindsey's journey in the film industry began at a very young age of 16 with an internship at Raleigh Studios Manhattan Beach, now known as MBS Studios, where he worked on productions such as the OC and CSI Miami. Now, after earning his BA in Film and Electronic Arts at CSULB, Michael worked on Phantom starring Ed Harris. Now, he has since collaborated with top cinematographers as a DIT on productions like Hello, My Name is Doris and A24's The Sky is Everywhere, and the popular TV shows including Showtime's The L Word, Generation Q, and With Love on Amazon Prime, to name a few. And Rhett Lindsey, known for his role as TJ in the 20th Century Fox film Big Momma's, Like Father Like Son, is the founder and CEO of Siimee, a social impact tech company dedicated to reducing bias in recruiting and hiring. But his work has been highlighted in the Washington Post, CNBC, and CBS News This Morning. Passionate about storytelling, Rhett will be pursuing his master's in creative writing and literature at Harvard's Extension School in the fall of 2024. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome both Michael and Rhett and one of the best short films this season with Will I See You Again, a very, very powerful drama with themes of forgiveness, redemption, and the enduring impact of unresolved conflicts. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Ward. Thank you for having us on your platform. We're extremely honored to be here today and speak with you.
Yeah, you're both welcome, and it's an absolute honor for me because I fell in love with this incredible film. So, to both of you, Michael and Rhett, where did the idea come from for this incredible story?
Yeah, well, I think it really is inspired by my own experiences with love and loss in college back when I was a student at the University of Kentucky. And I felt that a universal thing that everyone can relate to is not receiving closure, for whatever reasons those could be. And I felt that it would be very interesting to create a story where you're not so much having the courage to seek closure yourself, but there is a conduit, there's an instrument that plays a significant part in two people getting closure based on unforeseen circumstances. And so that's what inspired me to create the story. I wanted to tap into what it would be like to really get closure in a way where I'm not seeking it out, but it's put in front of me and I have to be brave enough to go through it.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed that concept in this film because you explore some very powerful themes here. Forgiveness, redemption, courage, friendship, of course, unresolved conflicts. I mean, that is some very heavy stuff. I mean, how did you manage to balance these themes in a short film?
Well, once I wrote the story, I then started writing the screenplay and I presented the first draft to my husband, Michael, because we always wanted to partner together. It's been a goal of ours, just as, just a married couple, but also as creatives to venture into filmmaking together. Mm-hmm. And so when I presented the story and the first draft of the screenplay, he fell in love with it. And we both wanted to create something that we haven't seen, at least within our queer community of filmmaking and storytelling. I think there is something very fundamental about balancing out how can we tell an authentic story that's based in fiction, but also has authentic circumstances, authentic emotions, authentic realities based on people's cultures, communities, religion, identities, race, and tell it in such a fine-tuned way in such a short amount of time where the point doesn't get distracted, the point doesn't get lost. Yeah. And so balancing out, all the layers of forgiveness, friendship, bravery was really, really crucial because we think a lot of times in queer films that we've seen, they're really one-noted sometimes when it comes to what the undertone is and then what the message is. And we wanted to make sure this was multi-layered so that anyone from any background can see a part of themselves in this story.
Well, then let me ask you this, Michael, because when you read this, when you read the screenplay and through the whole filmmaking process, and you're getting ready to direct. What was your vision as a director for this film?
Well, it was really to capture all the moments between the two men, or when he's speaking to anyone of counsel, Max, our main character, to capture the intensity that lives in between the lines, in between the moments of connection. There's this silence, and there's these thoughts that go through our characters' minds, and you can see it on camera. So one of the main goals was to find a cast that that had the emotional range that could deliver that, because in life there are so many things that people struggle with and they can't communicate it, but you can feel. You've been in a moment where you're speaking to someone and you just know they want to say something, and you can just feel the tension or the conflict within them. So that was one of the main notes that I rode with in terms of direction, was just to really embrace those beats in between every line of every action. That way the audience could really feel it. And in the way my husband wrote it, there was so much depth and history in the script. You could feel that certain people had relationships, and you, based on how they behaved and what they said, you can get a sense of maybe not exactly what the relationship was like, but you got a really good sense that there was a history, there was rapport, and then there was connection. And making that come to life on screen, that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. With the framing of the scenes, especially when you with the camera, you box the characters in, because you're causing the audience to feel all of their emotions. Maybe it's doubt, maybe it's nervousness, maybe it's being exposed and being forced to be open. And the
Right.
framing of those shots were fantastic, because as an audience, we're only focused on the person who is speaking. And we're going to get to the cast here in a moment, because
Yeah.
that's a whole nother story. But I want to ask you, because, and this is a question for either one of you, creating a character who is a pastor, testing his own beliefs was a brilliant move. I mean,
Thank you.
it seemed like a difficult balance, but you pulled it off with grace.
Thank you, Ward. Yeah, I come from a very conservative Christian background. Growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, I was raised in the church, and the church that I went to was very conservative in their messaging, and but also very frank in their thoughts about same-sex attraction, same-sex relationships, and the implementations of what can occur when you have that in terms of the afterlife. And what I wanted to capture with Max Palmer as our lead, the character of Max, was someone that has multiple complexities that he's battling. I wanted to capture that he's not only a pillar in a community, but he's also a Black man. He's also a husband. He is a pastor, which there is a leadership aspect involved. And then he also was someone that is dealing with past frustrations that he hasn't really come to accept yet. And I think it's very easy in life for people to put on a face, to accept what is, and just continue forward without really working out where the trauma comes from, getting to the root of problems, because eventually it just becomes bottled up. And I just know that there's a lot of people, whether they're men or women or however they self-identify, that are Max. They are that person that cannot be their full authentic selves. And maybe they don't know how to get there. Maybe it's based on their conditioning and how they've been raised, and social expectations and family pressures and value systems that don't align to what instinctually feels right and feels true to them. And I want to highlight that in a way that wasn't putting a flashlight on them and making people that can see themselves in Max feel like I am under a spotlight. I wanted to really be respectful of people's timing, be respectful of people's experiences, so that way the character Max you can see a full arc. You can see the hesitation from the beginning and all the way to the end. You can see how it's not only self-acceptance, but it is a forgiveness of self and of the person that he is involved in this experience with.
Yeah, because he was, I believe it was at the very beginning of when Max and then his friend, they were there before the lawyer because of the reading of the will. And this is before the whole polygraph thing. And Max, he was trying to use his identity as a pastor not to answer or even try to resolve the past conflicts, because he's trying to say, well, I'm a pastor, meaning I have to live at a different level than everybody else. And I was like, oh man, because it almost felt like he was trapped in his own calling.
Correct. Yeah. And that's a lot of pressure. I think from anyone of any race or creed, societal expectations, societal pressures, and then just self pressures, you either succumb to it or you overcome it. And I think what we managed to get in 24 minutes was both aspects of that side of Max.
Yeah, I have to ask you that, since you just brought that up on the 24 minutes, was that a gamble to go that long?
Well, okay, so we actually were originally at 28 minutes. And it was, I hear the phrase from a few of my mentors who are directors and editors and writers, and they say, well, you're going to have to kill your babies. And that's the phrase that's used because you are, it's a creation. It's something that you've made, and it's something that you put together. When you have your first assembly and then director's cut, you start realizing that maybe certain moments in timeline of the edit don't serve the story completely, or might give a hiccup in the pacing. And we cut down about 4.5 minutes. So we got it down to 24 minutes with credits. And from 28 to 24, there was so much more said, even though there was less time in the film.
Okay. And real quick, because of the film being 24 minutes, has that hurt you in any way in getting accepted in certain film festivals?
Well, I don't know if there's any way to actually know that.
Yeah.
We have been accepted to a few others. So we're in the Bronze Lens Film Festival in Atlanta, and we've also been selected by Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ film festival. All very prestigious Oscar qualifying festivals. So I don't look at it as the runtime's too long, it's unprogrammable. I think the content has value and the story resonates universally. So if the programmers feel it fits with what they're creating for their festival this year, then obviously we're thrilled and honored to be a part of that, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I was just wondering, because I've heard other filmmakers tell me oh, I went to 21 and it was almost like this cardinal sin that they committed. But I want to get back to the story.
Yeah.
Because there are multi layers to this film, which I love. There's the story, but then there's the dialogue. The dialogue in this film is absolutely memorable. I don't know of a short film I've ever watched where I actually remembered and wanted to recite a line from the film. You create more than one poignant moment in this film. And I think that I can say that the writing of the lines of this film was anointed.
No,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
That means a lot.
Rhett, you were born in Atlanta. So was I. So.
Oh, wow. What part?
Hold
on a second. Chamblee Dunwoody. Piedmont Hospital.
Oh my gosh. I grew up in Fayetteville, Clayton County area. That's where I grew up at.
Well, it's great to meet a fellow Georgian. So I go Bulldogs. But I want to, on this film, how in the world, you had this screenplay. I mean, how much time were you focused on the dialogue? Because it is some of the best I've ever seen.
Thank you. A lot of time. So I pumped out the first draft of the screenplay in about 2 days after I wrote the story. And I really wanted to make sure that these characters felt real And because I was pulling from my own, experiences that inspired me in my past, and then with talking to Michael, one thing when we started working together on just fine tuning and polishing up the screenplay, we really wanted to make sure that every single line had a purpose, that it was all intentional. It could not be any fluff conversations, fluff shots. Everything had to have a purpose and intent. And when it came to how we allowed the characters to communicate, I feel that there's so much heartache that people are scared to face. And no matter if you're straight or gay or however you identify, and I think that when people are put in situations that are uncomfortable, you can see a lot of the truth outside of the words. So what I loved about partnering with Michael when we were writing the further drafts of the screenplay together and when he was directing, we really wanted to make sure that what was communicated was more so seen visually, the uncomfortableness, the tension, and then what was said verbally would just complement that in a very fluid way. What would you say, Michael?
I think once you had the script written and then we started going at it and seeing it, what the subtext was, and just kind of honing in on what the intentions were, what each scene was, and what each character wanted, what the desire was. And, looking at what the story as a whole, the arc was, making sure that every line, every action had intention to serve how Max would end up at the end of the story.
Yeah.
And anything that we felt, like you said, was like a fluff or just didn't feel like it served the scene or sequence in the story, then we took it out. Or if it needed editing, we gave it more substance, like implications of a deeper relationship. If there are a few lines in there that people have mentioned in terms of, when they said that line, that really hit me. We took our time with those lines.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd love to know what those lines were for you, Ward.
Oh, I'm about to tell you. Let's start off with the first one that really made me stop. And I had to replay the scene a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So in the church, when Max and Claire are sitting in the pew, and of course, Claire is played by Naomi Wally, and she's looking at him, and she says, "All that held in, that's your stage 4." Oh my gosh. When she said that to him, I was like, will people ever understand what unforgiveness does to you? I mean, you saw me make the post the other day because unforgiveness is literally one of the greatest cancers to our being. It kills the soul. I mean, the one that holds it in is also the one holding the cure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And your film proves that the truth, shall set you free.
Thank you. Yeah, that line, I was inspired by that because to write that line specifically, because I feel that cancer, a lot of times it comes up when you least expect it. And what Max, the character Max, is enduring is something that he created himself. So he was fully aware of the decisions he made that led to him living the life that he's living, or isolating and distancing himself from Paul for 20 years. And I think also what Michael and I wanted to highlight was the comfort that women can give men in these type of vulnerable situations and circumstances. Luckily, my husband and I, when it came to our coming out story of just, living authentically as ourselves, our parents, our mothers fully embraced us, and our fathers had passed at the time, but our mothers fully embraced who we were. And we've always been shielded by the love of feminine qualities, feminine energy from the women in our lives. Yeah. And I wanted to make sure, and my husband and I wanted to make sure that in this film, through Claire, through Barbara, the lawyer, through even the polygraph technicians, that they were almost a cover. They were an umbrella for Max and Paul the entire way, because I think men in general, men that are either queer identifying or questioning, or any type of background on how they identify, they sometimes lack the courage to fully be themselves based on judgment from someone of the opposite sex.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people do experience negative consequences or communications from people when they are being their authentic selves. And so I wanted to show what would it be like for even when Max isn't speaking his authentic truth, but for a woman to see that and call him out on it in a way that's very, very respectful, very loving, and but poignant. Still like, hey, get your stuff together, man. Like, life is too short.
Well, and that brings me to the next line. So the lawyer, Barbara Lewis, which is played by the incredible Anna Maria Hordsford.
Yeah.
She
Wonderful.
said, and I recognized her the moment I saw her in the film. And but she said something profound and comforting to Max. She walks up to him and just so softly and lightly, she said, "I can see you just as you are." She removed the judgment from the room. I mean, a statement that many of us need to heed and adhere to. But like I said, she removed that judgment from the room, but she also let Max know that he was safe.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's so important.
For both of you, why was that one line and that moment, why was that so important?
Growing up, I wish that I had my mother say those words to me, because I knew what my attractions were very early on in my development. And it took me a long time to put a label on that. But I would hear things from my mother in passing, very, passive conversations about her outlook on same-sex attraction. And it was negative a lot of times, but luckily, by the grace of God and through just, learning and understanding, she has completely changed that. And that was even before my husband and I came out over a decade ago. But at a time where you're in the South, and to have a Black female, an elder, give you comfort, I do think that is rare, especially when it's coming directed at a pastor who's supposed to be the pinnacle, who's supposed to be on the pedestal of religion and knowledge and leadership. And so for a churchgoer who happens just to be the estate lawyer, to make that time to say, look, I see you and you can be yourself, that sparked what I believe, what I wrote, and my husband and I created for Max, the character, the child in him to feel understood and to know that he doesn't have to be ashamed. And I wish that a lot of men, no matter what their color or creed is, could get that needed that at any moment in their lives. Yeah. And I wanted to create a space and a visual representation of what that can be like, so people can take that with them.
Yeah.
Well, it brings something else up too with Barbara. That one line proves that she knew the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. And most times they...
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Most times, I believe, women's intuition is accurate. It's correct.
It's correct, usually, yeah.
And she still, even though she might have known or suspected something, she respected the space, and she found the right time to, even in private, she came up to him and she gave him that affirmation and that assurance. I think that's something that we all need in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was really a beautiful moment, because she kind of proves the idea, and you two would know more than I would in this area. She proves that there are people, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I've known the whole time.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's no surprise. But the way that she did it, like you said, Rhett, she did it in private, which was extremely respectful to him. And she didn't say it loud enough for everybody to hear, but with Max feeling the room closing in, she removed that uneasy feeling and gave him a gateway that when they did sit down to do the polygraph, gave him an avenue, a road to be free to travel. And
Right.
if he was ready to put it all on the table, he could, and no one would think any different of him
Yeah.
before or after. So that's
Right.
why that line, it's almost like the divining line in the whole film.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of religious, as you know, there's a lot of religious aspects to this film. There's a lot of hidden crosses in this film. And that was intentional
Yeah.
because I think on the flip side, what my husband and I also want to communicate was that Christianity is not bad. I think there are elements that need work. There are communications and thoughts that definitely need to be understood differently when it comes to people's experiences and their authentic selves. But even we go to a very prominent open community church here. Our pastor's open about who they are, and it's very welcoming and loving. Yeah. And so there is a good side to Christianity, and we wanted to just show that too, that there isn't a judgment. Yeah. There historically has been, and we want change from that. Yeah. But in our film, we know that there is a different side to that reality where it's different. It's not that reality of negativity, and we want to highlight that.
And that's well embodied in the female archetype in this story. Every female character is there to give grace to someone who's not giving it to themselves. That's what we wanted to encompass Barbara and Claire, and really have them be a support, an empathy that maybe isn't seen too often in reality as much as it should be.
Well, even the two women in the office handling the polygraph test,
right?
Neither one of them, not one, and I watched this, neither one of them at any given time, even in facial expressions, breathing, whatever, not one of them ever brought forth the spirit of judgment.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Neither correct. One. And I watched that very closely because I'm like, okay, if somebody's sitting there and they're reading the graph and somebody says something, they're in the room, what are they thinking? Are they receiving what the other two people are saying? Are they going to, cough or whatever and kind of let on that maybe they disagree? But no, they didn't even flinch. And to me, that goes back to Barbara's line. And even though only Max was probably the only one that heard it, I think it was just the whole spirit of the room. There is going to be no judgment here. But whose idea was it to implement the polygraph test?
It was mine.
That's rooted in what you made in the beginning. Yeah.
And why that was rooted, like I said, the story was definitely inspired by my own experiences with love and loss when I was in college. And one thing that I wish that I could have had was some type of closure. Be able to have the freedom and the space to ask certain questions that I wish I had the answer to. Being able to ask questions that I would feel confident that they would be truthful answers that I would receive, and not maybe a lie or sugar-coated or surface level truths. And so I was wondering, well, how can I create a story where you can get that, but in a way that for certain it's the truth. And that was through the polygraph. And this is a fictional story, and polygraphs are, some people think that they're not accurate 100%. For this story, they're accurate for the world of Max and Paul in our film. And I think it was really just, I have to give myself a pat on the back. I think it was genius to incorporate that when you have the circumstances of a pastor, when you have the circumstances of another person that is out and is living their life, but they have pain. Mm-hmm. They were able to get to living their life authentically through the pain that someone else inflicted on them. And that was a journey that I had to go through and experience in my own personal life with love and loss. And so my husband and I, when we agreed that this polygraph would be a great conduit to getting these two men to face themselves and face their truth, we knew we had gold with that.
Yeah. And of course it's the very thing in the film that's bringing out, like you said, authentic truth. And of course there was an ends to a means here. Mm-hmm. But I've got to say, actor Nick Wechsler, who plays Paul Jensen in this film, what a performance.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
It is rare for a short film to bring tears to my eyes, and I've seen just about anything. I think your film is probably the second one that ever did that to me.
Wow. Wow.
His performance when he's talking to Max, you feel it in every fiber of your being.
You do?
I mean, that would have been an Oscar, that would have been an Oscar-winning performance, and it's in a short film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is one of a kind. He is phenomenal. A great actor. Just a master of his craft and just an incredible human being. He's the sweetest person.
Yeah.
And a joy to work with. And yeah, I mean, when we had his audition tape come in, we were moved. Yeah. I think I
was up.
Yeah, you tell the story on that one.
Long story short, our amazing casting director, Tina Becker, she sent us an email of Nick's audition. And Nick, let's get one thing straight. He didn't have to go on tape for this. He's very seasoned in his craft as an artist. Mm-hmm. But when he got the script, he was so moved by it. He said, I want to show these filmmakers what I can do, what I can bring to this character. And so he voluntarily put himself on tape. He was not requested to go on tape. He believed in this character that much. And so when we received his audition tape, it was late at night, probably like 11:30 p.m. I just happened to be up in bed, just browsing the computer, and I got the email and I watched it, and Michael was asleep next to me. And I immediately said, Michael, you have to wake up. Get up right now. We found Paul. This is Paul. And he was like, wait, what? Well, he was still trying to just get himself coherent.
Yeah.
And
I thought I was dreaming. I was like, this is either I'm dreaming or this is like the best audition I've ever seen. And just to see someone create it without any notes, nothing. He took the script and understood the assignment. and when we saw that audition, I was like, oh my gosh, he's the one.
Yeah.
There are life lessons to be learned from this one performance. And for all of you actors out there watching or listening, you're going to need to see this performance because this is a teaching tool to improve your craft. That's how good it is. But for Rhett and Michael, I've got to ask you this because with that one scene with Paul Jensen, and he's given us that scene with the tears in his eyes. Was that the goal, or did the magic just happen?
I'll let Mike speak to the direction because that's all in the direction, I think, more so outside of the script. I think the script, the words impact him and influence, but Michael definitely laid the foundation. So
I really, the gift of working with this season cast was that I could trust them to deliver because they have all the tools in their toolbox to read the story, read the script, and deliver. So really, when we went out, we rehearsed as well.
Yeah.
And being able to have conversations about intention and every decision that, for instance, specifically with Nick and Paul, him playing his character, it was working with an actor who's just so in tune with you in the story, and then doing a couple takes and then just say, hey, this next one's yours. Just go with it. Get messy with it. Just let anything happen. It's just, it's magical to watch. And that's the gift of having actors that are just so in tune with not only the script, but the director, and then just with themselves. Mm-hmm. Everything feels authentic. Mm-hmm. And there were more than a few times where the crew felt it too. Yeah. Not just with Nick's performance, but with Josea's as well. And everyone was, it only makes the crew and all the talent more passionate and more spirited to give their best effort, because you can see everyone really investing and giving their all for the story.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody in the room kept from crying.
It was hard. Trust me. It was very hard, especially when Hosea had his moment at the end, that final release.
Yeah.
That was memorable.
That's my next question. Mm-hmm. The scene with Max, of course, played by Hosea Chandez, When he first said the line, I stopped the film. I was like, what did he just say? I played it again. I was like, okay, I need it. It's like reading a Bible scripture. Sometimes you got to read it over and over again and go, oh, now I get it. I watched this scene with Max 8 times.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So Max says in the film during the exchange between him and Paul, and I quote, "There is no one path to discover God's true love for you." Oh my God, I thought I was going to cry. But I kept watching it over and over again because I'm like, the words. I mean, Rhett, do you realize how profound those words are?
I think it's like you said, Ward. I think there was a lot of divine influence and blessings on this film. A lot of things happen so fluently with us even getting this off the ground.
Yeah.
We went into, after I wrote the first draft of the screenplay and then we partnered together on it, we went from a month of just knocking out different drafts to raising money from our investors to hiring a producer to hiring a casting director to doing casting to getting into pre-production. And we filmed the first week of January 2024 in 4 days. 3 days, sorry.
Yeah.
So that all happened in like 2 months.
It was end of October. You wrote it, and then we went through November honing and getting a shooting draft, and then all of December casting and pre-production. We brought on 2 wonderful producers who executed all the challenges that come with trying to plan a film shoot. Alex Coffey and Valeria Lopez, and they brought on Tina Becker, and then from there it was just this cascade of.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to have the team that I had because they're all folks that I have working relationships on my television shows. So one of my biggest champions and mentors, Sandra Valde Hansen, she's my cinematographer. She's ASCDP. She teaches at the American Film Institute, and she has always been a big supporter. So when I told her about the script and the movie, she said, let's do it. And with that came all of the other crew members that we collaborate with. And Rochelle Brown, my camera operator, Nick Musco, camera operator. I had folks that I went to college with help out on this in sound and post-production. So it really was a film family and actual family experience because in the church, 99% of those folks are our family.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
so we say all that to say, Ward, like when you mention this, the spirituality of Max saying that line, the divine intervention that I feel and that my husband feel was really placed on this film. It speaks for itself, I think, from everything just aligning itself, from what Michael just said to the performances to the words that I wrote. The reason why that line stood out for me when I wrote it was because I struggled with wondering what is God's true love for me, because I've been told that how I identify and what I feel instinctually about myself is not correct. It's not aligned to him. And I think a lot of people, even outside of questioning of a sexuality or same-sex attraction, can wonder how I feel naturally. Does that align to God? Or I'm told that it's not aligned to God. And so once you can have a relationship with God, in my opinion, and you connect to yourself through him or through the higher source, the higher being that you believe in, that's where that comfort comes from. And so that's where Max almost went against his teachings, because he finally understood that, there are different ways of discovering God's love for you, because to love yourself is to love the higher source, and to the higher source to love you is all connected. And because we're all connected, we're universally all connected, and love is love at the end of the day. And so if you believe that the higher being is love, then there are multiple ways of getting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I heard him, when Max said the line, and like I said, I played it over and over and over again. Even after I finished the film, I went back to the scene because I was like, okay, I need to hear this again. I need to watch this again. And I kept looking at the words. There's no one path to discover God's true love for you. And I was sitting there thinking, but that's what God does. He gives us multiple paths to discover his love for us. Because everybody's life is different.
Yes.
We're not robots. We're not all created the same. Sure, we're created in his image, like his word says, but that true love he has for us, there's not just one path.
Right.
For some people that I know, he has literally made a visit, made a visit to say, hey, I don't like what you're doing, but I love you, and you need to remember that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that line Michael and Rhett, that line is like a magnet. It's like you're either drawn to it or you're stuck to it. And I think I'm both. But of course, you just alluded to my next question because you already talked about the kind of journey it was to get this film made. And first of all, I am shocked that you wrote this in October. You filmed it in January of this year, and here you are created a film that everybody is talking about. I mean, literally talking about. And I follow a ton of filmmakers on social media, and I know who's talking about what and who's not. And this film, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I could describe it because there's just a purity about it.
Thank you.
But let's talk about this amazing, stellar cast. So you already told me how you got Nick. Now, what was the overall casting process like? Because it was perfect.
Casting was wonderful. It was a big learning experience for myself and my husband. And Tineke Becker, she is a gem. She is phenomenal. Yeah. So, the person to go to for casting. Her network is, very, very broad, and she's got wonderful instincts. We sent her the script, the breakdown, and she absolutely loved it. And immediately she had a few people just ideas, and that put us in the right direction for who we ended up with. And like she had said, oh, Nick Wexler, Paul. And we're like, oh, okay, let's look. And then that happened. And then she presented us with Hosea Sanchez. And my husband had watched the game growing up. I know of the show. I've seen a few episodes of the original show, and then I'd watched on Paramount Plus. So I knew Hosea Sanchez as an actor, and I'd seen his work when he was on All American. And I was like, this can happen. I feel like this is right. And when they went to the Paramount Plus version of the show, that character that he was playing was exploring some things about identity and things about mental health with men. So that gave me everything I needed to feel confident that Hosea could do it. And obviously, shows Hosea is phenomenal at what he does. And Rosanny Zayas, who plays Jessica, one of our polygraph operators, I've known her since 2019 because we did the L Word Generation Q together. So we go back to being on set and hanging out, and we became good friends on that show. And she's phenomenal. She is one of the best actors of her age group, and she will be a name to remember as she keeps moving forward in the business. And so we had already tied down Rosanny and Hosea and Nick, and then you want to speak on Richard. Yeah, because you've known Richard for a little while.
Yeah, Richard Lawson, who plays Gerald in our film, he's been a close friend and a mentor of mine for years now. He's always just been available for me. He's made time. Mm-hmm. Meaning anytime I reach out to him, whether it's through my startup tech company, CME, he's a advisor on our board, or just through different other ventures, he's always moved his schedule around to make time for myself and for Michael. And so when I approached him about this film, he said, like, let's do it.
That was a done deal. He said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he showed up and he delivered in all his glory of what he knows to do. It was magic watching him just step on set, and he just knew who Gerald was.
Yeah.
Minimal notes, and he gave you more than you could ever ask for the portrayal of a father mourning his son, seeing this wonderful bittersweet moment of friends uniting. He made that character sing, and that was wonderful. We didn't need an audition for that because Richard Lawson is Richard Lawson. So
how did you cast Naomi and Anna Marie?
Those were all through the grace of Miss Tinica Becker. That's in her network. So Tinica, through connection, she knew Anna Maria Horsford and sent Anna Maria the script. And we're thinking, well, she's a legend. We hope she loves the script. And Tinica texted me. She said she wants to speak to you. So she gave me a call, and it was a wonderful call. She's incredible.
Yeah.
She had basically said, I love the script, and life is good, and I'm all about helping a new filmmaker, and I believe in the story. I think the character is wonderful, and let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it. And that's how that happened.
That's how it happened.
I said, oh my gosh, Anna Marie Horsford. And she's a gem as well. She's one of the sweetest women. Yeah. Such a phenomenal actress. She fully delivered, as you can tell in the film, but even in the edit, I had so much to work with because she's just so versatile, and she can give you so many options for that type of character. And she made Barbara just sing on camera. And then through Tinica, we also found Whitney Morgan Cox to play our polygraph person opposite of Rosanny. And we had just seen one of her features. Aporia is what it was called, and we thought she was great. She did an amazing job in that movie, and Tinica said, I think she's the one. Trust in your people. Yep. And as with Naomi as well, we auditioned a few different actresses, and Naomi came on, and she
came on late.
She came on late, and we got on our Zoom callback.
And when we say late, we don't mean late for the audition. We mean late in the process.
I
know what you mean.
One of the last folks we casted, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was just magic. When you know. Yep. So when I always feel like when I'm watching actors audition, if I'm smiling because I know I'm connecting, there's no question. It's they have the role.
Yeah. And then Robert.
And then Robert as well.
Yeah. And I know what my response is to this film. What has been the response from audiences who have seen it?
Yeah, from people that have been able to, see a private screener of it. In all honesty, it's been very positive. Mm-hmm. We've had comments such as, I feel seen in this, or I see myself, or I see someone that I know. Mm-hmm. We've received comments that it didn't feel like it was 24 minutes. It felt shorter. We had comments that they loved how minimal the space was of locations, that we told a story in just 3 locations. We received comments that they liked how we incorporated a religion into the story, but not letting the religion overpower the story or be the focal point of the story. And what would you say? What else is some?
I think the most humbling thing for me for feedback from people that have seen the movie is getting positive responses from all different demographics.
Yeah.
When we did a lot of our test screeners, when we locked the cut, we had friends who either were LGBTQ identifying, or their children, or from anywhere between a 16-year-old all the way to, an 89-year-old, women, men, straight, LGBTQ. The common comment that we would get is, What's next? I feel like there's more. I would love to know, because you allude to so many backstories that seem so rich, and it's almost like a tease. Yeah. They love it.
I can tell you what you ought to be doing with this film. After I watch it, I was like, because there are so many films that I watch, and then after they're over, I'm like, okay, this is a one and done. But I don't mean that in a negative way. And then I'll see some like, okay, this was made because they're pitching for a feature. Then you get one and you're like, I want more. This one, not only do I want more, But what I see this film is becoming is, remember the national phenomenon of This Is Us?
Yes.
This Is
Wow.
Us.
Yeah.
That's what this is. This is a film that I can see becoming a streaming series, and the whole nation's like, hey, did you see such and such? Did you see Will I See You Again? You know,
Well-
episode 1 and episode 2. I mean, this is the story. This story has care. And see, that's the thing about when you watch This Is Us. I mean, my wife loved the series, and I'd be walking into the living room like, oh, do I want to go to bed feeling this heavy? You know, it's like, it's, you know, my joke was it's because she was always watching Grey's Anatomy. And I'm like, okay, 5 people died in this episode. Now I got to go to bed. And then I know the next episode, no one's really going to die because they're not going to overdo it. But this one, your film, this has the elements of becoming a This Is Us, to where, not that it's heavy, but it's real life that you cannot ignore. And here you are bringing out these storylines and these scenarios in which people go, yeah, that's me. Or, yeah, that's so-and-so. Oh, yeah, I got a friend just like that. That's what this film is.
Thank you. Well, in terms of good news, we just completed writing our pilot for a limited series of Will I See You Again?
Yeah. So that has been in the works.
Yes.
When he wrote the story in the first draft, we went into foundational mode of creating what this world was, not just for the future, but for our actors as well. The way we had some substance to like who they were, what kind of happened, and to give them more motivation and just the headspace to work with as the actors. But the utility behind doing that was always to create a broader story of a longer narrative.
Yeah, but limited.
Limited, yeah.
This would be a limited series,
Right.
about 6 to 8 episodes, 1 hour long each. And it's funny you mentioned This Is Us, because part of our idea behind it is that it's a crossover of This Is Us meets Friday Night Lights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to say something. I'm straight as can be. So, what amazed me about your characters, Max and Paul, was the masculinity of each character.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is the thing that needs to be shown. Because when I saw the story, I would have never known.
Yeah.
And the way you handled the questions on the polygraph, I mean, you handled it, both of you, with such incredible grace that you brought forth a film in which no one on either side would ever feel uneasy about.
Yeah. It was very intentional. And the reason why is because my husband and I, identify as queer men, we struggle with seeing ourselves reflected on mainstream media or mainstream entertainment, of people that have similar qualities or personalities or just traits. Sometimes the media can tend to focus on one type of demographic of what that looks like. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's be very clear. There's nothing wrong with the demographic that is normally being showcased. I think any showcase of an underrepresented group is important. But I think for us, because we had control over this narrative and the visual storytelling that we wanted to show, was that let's take two men that are somewhat representative of you and I, but also look like your brother, look like your father, your uncle, your boss, your best friend, your cousin, your brother. And let's put them in a world where that does exist. Because it does exist.
It does exist.
And we don't see that often.
Yeah.
And because I pulled from a lot of my own inspirations of being an athlete, going to college, I present naturally as what people would consider masculine. And I think that is not seen a lot. And I think it's not seen a lot because people are scared to say, oh my God, what if my husband's dealing with this and I don't know? What if my brother's dealing with this and I don't know? Because we're so comfortable with putting an identifier on people.
Yeah, but
Saying,
Rhett, the thing that I actually liked, because all three of us know Hollywood has this playbook, and they're like, okay, we need this stereotype right here.
Yep.
And the stereotypes that Hollywood continues to create and continues to push forward does not help anyone.
No.
In any shape, form, or fashion. Does not help. It actually, I think, starts harming particular groups. Or all groups for that matter. But you bring a film where you literally broke the stereotype. Because when I watch it, especially when you're seeing between Max and Paul, I'm sitting there the whole time going, I would have never known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of the dialogue, the way it was written, it just came out beautiful.
Because most people, like I said, I put a lot from my own reality, and most people growing up, whether I was in high school or college, or even today, they don't think that I am queer. They don't associate that label with me. And I think, again, to your point about stereotypes, it becomes a negative where we have an idea of what that looks like, and you're blanketing and you're disincluding people, which then makes them disinclude themselves and fold into themselves. And so we were very intentional.
Right.
Yeah, and tell you the truth, I kind of like that. I mean, to where, if people don't know, because if we're supposed to look at all of us as equals, we just got to remove the labels. And
I think
this film is beautiful.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, this film is beautiful.
Thank you. I think sometimes the reason why people need the label is because it feels safe and it gives people an understanding. And then on the flip side, if someone that has been overlooked and unacknowledged based on their authentic selves, the label that they present and represent is power for them. It's a tool to say, this is who I am and I stand by it. So on the flip side, I do think labels are important, but I think it is situational to the person,
Yeah, no, right. I completely agree. And I probably said it wrong, but but I completely agree with you. And I can completely understand that.
Yeah.
But I have to say again, and I can say it over and over again, because the greatest thing is we're entering the film award season because you are debuting at HollyShorts.
We are.
Yeah.
And that is a very big deal. It's an Oscar qualifier. I found out today that, they're doing the London edition in December, and that's BAFTA.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting some very, very good things from this film. And ladies and gentlemen, this powerful drama, it delves into the themes of forgiveness, redemption, and the enduring impact of unresolved conflicts. I mean, it explores the complexities of male friendship and the courage required to face uncomfortable truths, and it does it with grace. I mean, as for Max and Paul, they confront their past. They must also confront who they have become, and in doing so, they uncover the transformative power of honesty and reconciliation. The brilliance of this film is the story, and it's also in the dialogue. Award-winning performances from each and every character, especially the main characters. You will walk away remembering some of the lines in this film. And when you do, those words are going to penetrate your heart and your soul. But more importantly, when you see this film, you will be left changed for the better. Look, you may have a hidden heaviness in your own life, and now you'll see how forgiveness will carry that heaviness away.
Yeah.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, is what pure, unadulterated cinema is all about. And I can see this short film, Will I See You Again, as a major contender this award season. So Michael and Rhett, you better get a very big mantle because I think it's about to be holding up some very heavy hardware.
Thank you so much, Ward.
Thank you.
That truly means a lot. We greatly just appreciate your time, this space, this amazing platform that you've created. We see the heart and soul that goes into this, and it's so inspiring. It truly is. So we're just really grateful and honored that you would even want to have us on your platform, and just for just watching our film and speaking very positively about it. It means the world, truly.
Yeah. Thank you for shine a light on this story, and us as filmmakers is to bring light, a narrative that's not represented too often on screen. And that's our mission, is to really just inspire based on universal stories that happen in places that aren't really seen too often.
Yeah, and this film, I mean, I can literally just go on and on and on about it. And I mean that honestly and sincerely, but this film is elevated so high above so many other films that I've seen this year, and that I've seen, because we're now in what I call the award-winning season, because my Oscar duties will start at the end of September. So I'm going to be able to see who rose to the top. And the good thing is I know some Academy members. So if you get qualified and shortlisted, I'm going to be doing some campaigning for Will I See You Again?
Oh, thank you, Ward.
But again, not only are both of you always welcome back on my show, I can't wait to see what you do next. And if anybody from Paramount and Netflix or Hulu is watching, these gentlemen have written a pilot series that you need to sign these guys, no questions asked, because they're holding a massive hit in their hands.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ward.
Yeah, thank you.
And for the rest of you, well, be sure to see Will I See You Again. If you're going to HollyShorts or any of the film festivals this year in which it appears, you make sure this is at the top of your list. Get that ticket, sit down, and sit back and watch one of the best short films you will ever see. And as for me, I give this short film the Bond on Cinema Reel of Approval and one of the top films of the year. And gentlemen, just keep on doing what you're doing, because I can't wait to see what other films you plan on creating. And again, the door is always open here at Bond on Cinema for you two, because I can't wait to talk film with you again. And you're very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all the replays of our interviews with the top film directors, the producers and screenwriters, as well as actors and more on Bond on Cinema. I want to thank you for watching. So as for me, I'll either see you at the movies or from the red carpet.
You three were just inseparable.
This feels like a lifetime ago.
We were also, I don't know, free back then. Max, it's been 20 years.
It appears that your friend Jim is giving you this moment. Use it. I see you just as you are. And that's enough.